So I'm Rusty Schweickart. I was the Lunar Module Pilot on Apollo 9, which flew from the 3rd to the 13th of March in 1969. It was the first flight of the Lunar Module. Well, people often ask about the question of whether space is a unifying thing or not. The fact of the matter is that in the 1960s, it was very much a Cold War environment with the US versus the Soviet Union. The Vietnam War was going on. Robert Kennedy had just been assassinated. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. There were riots. There was all kinds of stuff going on of a historic nature. The Apollo program occurred at a very turbulent time, and right at the end of the year for Apollo 8, making that incredible step to the moon and looking back at the Earth. I mean, we went to the moon and we discovered the Earth. And that put a tremendous, wonderful, unified feeling in the country right at the end of a terrible year, really. But we were very focused on meeting that JFK goal. And so in some sense it was a single-minded effort, but we were certainly not unaware of what was going on in the country and in the larger world. JFK's goal was a very, very personal thing. I can only really speak for myself. Having said that, it was a very, clearly a very shared goal. But for me, it was partly a national commitment. It was partly a race with the Soviets. But more than anything else, for me, it was doing something that was clearly right in terms of human destiny. We had to go to the moon. I mean, you're going into space and you can't ignore the moon being there, so it's a very logical step. There was the race to the moon, but we frankly, a number of us at least, would cheer when the Soviets would do another thing because it incentivized our leadership and our managers and whatnot to be a little less risk averse than they would otherwise have been. And so while on the one hand, there was a competition, at the same time, at least for me, it was very much humanity moving out as it should into the larger universe. Perhaps the most profound element of Apollo to me, there are actually two pieces. First, it was the Apollo 8 experience of Bill Anderson, Jim Lovell, and Frank Borman going around the moon for the first time, not with instruments, but with human beings with their own eyes. And Bill Anders looked up at the horizon and saw the Earth rising up over that cratered, black and white, totally lifeless moon. And there, that beautiful blue and white Earth rising up over the horizon was such a shock, being the only color that they could see other than shades of gray. And the recognition and the realization that all of life, everything that we care about, everything that means anything, is on that beautiful little planet out there that we call home, the Earth. Then on Apollo 9, because of the failure of a camera that was supposed to be taking documentary movies of me doing an EVA thing, I had 5 minutes while Dave tried to unsuccessfully repair the camera, just hanging there waiting. And I said, okay, this is my time to be a human being, not an astronaut. And I let go with my right hand and I swung around the beautiful Earth. And in that experience of just becoming a human sponge, all of these questions came in about what's really going on here? How did I get here? Why am I here? What does this really mean? I was just a representative of humankind as we move out from Mother Earth into the cosmos. And that understanding, that combination of that Apollo 8 view of the Earth, the planet, and that personal experience, I came to realize we are a very powerful influence. We're not in control, but we certainly have an extremely powerful influence on the continued evolution of life. All of us need to understand that in our own way, we have a responsibility for seeing the extension of this experiment that we're all part of. In terms of the future, I almost always say when people ask that question, we went to the moon back in Apollo 50 years ago as Americans. The Soviets were doing their program, and I think today it's wonderful that what we're talking about is not a bunch of white men, but white, black, and brown men and women. And that's what it should be. Even today, we have the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians and others doing national programs. At the same time, we have the International Space Station. I started and led, and today still take part in the Association of Space Explorers, which was my effort to bring astronauts and cosmonauts from around the world together. What we're seeing is, in a way, the evolution of humanity moving further and further out into the universe. So I often say that we went to the moon as a national program, but when we go to Mars and beyond, as far as I'm concerned, we will be people from planet Earth. And I think we will do this internationally and cooperatively. And that to me is the way it should be. My hope is that in the middle of all the hubbub of national politics and partisan bickering and all of the rest of it, that there is a deeper understanding within national leaders, whether the Congress or the administration, both hopefully, that space exploration is something which is a deeper level of responsibility. It's a responsibility in a sense that we have to generations, countless generations in the future. That is the future of where life is evolving, and I would hope that a piece of their commitment to the NASA annual budget and to international cooperation and to supporting imaginative, deep exploration arises out of that deep recognition. That's what I hope. At the same time, what we see every day in the newspapers and on Twitter and everywhere else is, again, the BS, the froth, the bubbles, the bickering, and all of the rest of it. But I hope underneath that, there's a bit of a deeper understanding of our responsibility to the future. If we look at the space program today, from my perspective, the real juice in space exploration today is coming from this new entrance into space technology led by private industry. NASA has a large responsibility and will continue to have one, as will other national space programs. But government programs have a way over time of becoming ossified and risk-averse, whereas the new entrants coming in are very, very innovative. They're competing with one another. They've got all kinds of great ideas. And, we see that in the form of Elon Musk and SpaceX with the first stage landing and being used multiple times. Even 2 first stages from the first Falcon 9 Heavy coming back and landing in formation. I mean, it was incredible. You would never have seen that coming out of NASA or the government. So that kind of thing is very exciting. And if you listen to Elon Musk, I take him at his word. I think he very, very deeply believes that we will become a multiplanetary species. And he simply articulated it for many of us. I mean, he didn't invent the idea, but he was brave enough to state it outright. And he believes it. And that's what he cares about. It's what I care about. I think it's what many, many people care about, even subconsciously. However, that's going to take a lot of effort, and one of the things is time available to get that effort done. So part of what I've been dedicating my last decade or more to is ensuring that we don't get wiped out in the process, in that time period that it takes us to be able to begin really moving out into deeper space. And that is protecting the Earth from asteroid impacts, which we can detect and predict and prevent if we act responsibly. And that's the challenge that I've been addressing. One might think that the real challenge in terms of protecting the Earth from asteroid impacts are the technical issues that are involved in it. And there are very, very serious, challenging technical issues, but they're going to be solved. I mean, we're very close to that now, but what we discovered as we got wrestling with the real issues involved in deflecting an asteroid that we know is coming are the geopolitical issues, the geopolitical challenges. That's where the real difficulty is going to come, going to arise. I would say if, but I'm going to say when we get hit by the next asteroid, because we will, hopefully a small one, but when we get hit, it will be because of a failure of the political world to make a coordinated and cooperative decision to have that asteroid not hit by spending money to deflect it. And so it will be a good test of our ability to overcome the small national self-interests conflicting with one another and say, wait a minute, we're people from planet Earth, we've got to protect all of life, and we have to act together to do that. Ultimately, it will be the planet, the people of planet Earth who decide to protect the Earth when that challenge comes up, and it will.